Are the Toronto Blue Jays about to pull off the most audacious heist in American League East history? Picture this: a blockbuster trade with their fiercest division rival, the New York Yankees, for a player who just delivered one of the most electrifying seasons baseball has seen in years. We're talking about Jazz Chisholm Jr., a 27-year-old superstar who just went 30-30, combining raw power with blazing speed. And who could be the missing piece that transforms Toronto from playoff hopefuls into legitimate World Series contenders? But here's the kicker. To make this happen, the Blue Jays would have to surrender their most prized pitching prospect, a fan-favorite utility player, and a promising young outfielder. The question isn't just whether this trade makes sense, it's whether Toronto has the guts to go all in when the stakes have never been higher. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to break down the perfect trade package that could reshape the entire AL East landscape. The Jazz Chisholm Jr. phenomenon. Why this trade makes perfect sense, let's start with the centerpiece. Jazz Chisholm Jr., this isn't just another good player we're talking about. This is a bona fide game changer who just posted a historic 30-homer, 30-steal season in the Bronx. Think about what that means for a second. In an era where baseball has become increasingly one-dimensional, where teams either hit homers or strike out, Chisholm represents something different. He's a throwback to the days when speed and power coexisted, when a player could beat you in multiple ways, when the threat of a stolen base could completely disrupt a pitcher's rhythm. For the Blue Jays, this is the kind of player who changes the entire complexion of a lineup. Toronto's offense in 2025 was solid but predictable station-to-station power hitting that became too easy to game plan against in crucial moments. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a generational talent, no question, but even he needs protection in the lineup. He needs someone who can create chaos on the base paths, someone who forces opposing pitchers to make quick decisions, someone who can turn a single into a double, and a double into a run scored from first base. That's Jazz Chisholm Jr. in a nutshell. But here's what makes this even more compelling: versatility. Chisholm can play second base at an elite level, and he's shown the ability to handle center field when needed. For manager John Schneider, that kind of defensive flexibility is like having an extra chess piece on the board. You can move him around based on matchups, you can protect other players from defensive exposure, and you can create lineup combinations that simply weren't possible before. And let's talk about Rogers Center for a moment. That left-handed power stroke is absolutely tailor-made for Toronto's home ballpark. We're talking about a potential 35 to 40 homer guy in that environment with the speed to still swipe 25 to 30 bags. That's MVP caliber production, folks. The cost. Breaking down what Toronto must surrender now, here's where it gets painful for Blue Jays fans. To acquire a player of Chisholm's caliber from a division rival, you don't just dip into the prospect pool, you drain it. This proposed package is built around three key pieces: Ernie Clement, Joey Loperfido, and the crown jewel left-hander Ricky Tiedemann. Let's break down each piece and understand exactly what Toronto would be giving up. Ernie Clement became a legitimate fan favorite in 2025, and for good reason. The guy hit .277 with an absurdly low 8.4% strikeout rate, proving he's one of the best contact hitters in baseball. He's the kind of player who does all the little things right, takes his walks, puts the ball in play, plays multiple infield positions with competence. In a vacuum, Clement is exactly the type of player you want on a winning team. But here's the harsh reality. He's a complementary piece, not a cornerstone. He's the guy who helps you in 88 games, not the guy who pushes you to 95 and a deep playoff run. Joey Loperfido represents the classic what-if prospect. In his first full season with Toronto, he showed flashes of brilliance, legitimate left-handed power, decent speed, and the ability to play all three outfield positions. But flashes aren't enough when you're trying to win now. Loperfido might develop into a solid, everyday player, or he might plateau as a fourth outfielder. That uncertainty is exactly why he's tradable in a deal like this. The Yankees would be getting a young, controllable outfielder with upside, but Toronto would be trading potential for proven production. And then there's Ricky Tiedemann. Oh boy, this is where it gets really tough. Tiedemann has been the organization's top pitching prospect for years, a left-hander with frontline starter potential. After recovering from Tommy John surgery in mid-2024, he's now throwing without restriction, and his stock is climbing again. Trading him feels like organizational malpractice on the surface. You're giving up a potential ace before he's even thrown a pitch in majors. But here's the counter-argument. Prospect hugging has cost this franchise before. How many times have we seen teams hold onto prospects too long, watching their windows close while waiting for the next guy to develop? Tiedemann is 23 years old and has never faced big league hitting. Chisholm is 27 and just went 30-30 in the majors. That's the difference between hope and reality. The Yankees' perspective. Why New York would actually consider this now? Let's flip the script and look at this from the Bronx perspective. Why would the Yankees, a team that rarely sells, even consider trading a player who just had a career year? The answer is both simple and complex: financial reality and roster construction. Jazz Chisholm Jr. is set to hit free agency after the 2026 season, and after a 30-30 campaign, he's looking at a contract that could easily exceed $200 million over 7 or 8 years. The Yankees have historically been willing to spend, but they're also facing massive financial commitments elsewhere. Do they really want to lock up that much money in a player who, while dynamic, also comes with injury concerns and defensive limitations? Or do they capitalize on his peak value right now when his trade stock has never been higher? This trade package gives the Yankees exactly what they need: a potential ace, immediate MLB depth, and financial flexibility. Ricky Tiedemann is the centerpiece from New York's perspective. If he stays healthy, and that's admittedly a big if, the Yankees are acquiring a left-handed starter with frontline potential and 6 years of team control. That's gold in today's market. The Yankees' player development system has a proven track record of maximizing pitching talent, and Tiedemann could realistically be in their rotation by mid-2026, providing a cost-controlled solution to their pitching depth concerns. But the depth pieces matter too. Ernie Clement isn't just a throw-in, he's the perfect utility player for a Yankees team that struggled with availability issues throughout 2025. His elite contact skills and ability to play second base, third base, and shortstop provide exactly the kind of safety net that championship teams need. Remember how the Yankees' season fell apart in the playoffs, partly because they couldn't cover for injuries? Clement solves that problem. Joey Loperfido gives them a left-handed outfield bat with power upside who can step into the rotation immediately. He's not going to replace Chisholm's production one-for-one, but he's a fraction of the cost and provides similar defensive versatility. By making this deal, the Yankees get younger, deeper, and cheaper, all while adding a potential ace. That's not a rebuild, that's a retool on the fly, and it's exactly the kind of move that smart front offices make when they're thinking 2 or 3 years ahead instead of just next season. The bigger picture. Why this trade could reshape the AL East. Let's zoom out for a moment and consider what this trade would mean for the American League East as a whole. This isn't just about two teams swapping assets. This is about power dynamics, competitive windows, and the kind of bold moves that define championship eras. For the Blue Jays, acquiring Chisholm sends an unmistakable message. We're going for it right now. After years of competitive, but not quite good enough, this would be the front office putting their money where their mouth is. It would energize a fan base that's grown increasingly frustrated with near misses and early playoff exits. It would give Vladimir Guerrero Jr. the kind of dynamic lineup protection he's never had, and it would force the rest of the division to respond. Think about what the lineup could look like: Chisholm leading off or hitting second, Guerrero in the heart of the order, and suddenly you've got a 1-2 punch that can beat you with power, speed, and pure hitting ability. That's the kind of offense that wins playoff series, not just regular season games. And with Chisholm's defensive versatility, you're also improving the team's overall defensive profile, which has been a weakness in recent years. For the Yankees, this trade would be an admission that their current window might be closing, but it would also be a smart pivot toward the next one. By acquiring Tiedemann and the depth pieces, they're essentially hitting the reset button without blowing everything up. They're acknowledging that Chisholm's value is at its peak, and that waiting another year only increases the risk of losing him for nothing in free agency or being forced to overpay to keep him. But here's the really fascinating part. This trade could create a domino effect throughout the division. If the Blue Jays get Chisholm, what do the Red Sox do? What about the Orioles, who are trying to build their own dynasty? Suddenly, every team in the AL East is forced to respond, and we could be looking at an arms race that makes the division even more competitive than it already is. That's good for baseball, good for fans, and exactly the kind of high-stakes drama that makes the sport compelling. So, here's the bottom line, folks. This trade is a calculated gamble for both sides, but it's the kind of gamble that championship teams have to be willing to take. For the Blue Jays, it's about recognizing that their window is now, that Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s prime years are finite, and that adding a 30-30 player in his prime is worth the risk of losing a pitching prospect who's never thrown a big league pitch. For the Yankees, it's about maximizing value, getting younger and deeper, and positioning themselves for sustained success rather than chasing one more year with a player they might not be able to afford long-term. The real question isn't whether this trade makes sense on paper. It clearly does for both sides. The real question is whether these two organizations have the courage to make a blockbuster deal with a division rival, knowing that if it goes wrong, they'll be second-guessed for years. But that's what separates good front offices from great ones: the willingness to make the tough call when the moment demands it. If this deal happens, we could be looking back on it as the move that defined the 2025 to 2026 offseason, the trade that shifted the balance of power in the AL East, and the moment when the Blue Jays finally went from pretenders to contenders. And if you're as fired up about this possibility as I am, hit that like button and drop a comment below telling me whether you think Toronto should pull the trigger or hold on to Tiedemann. Because this is the kind of debate that makes baseball the greatest sport on earth. High stakes, tough decisions, and the knowledge that one move can change everything. Let's see if the Blue Jays have what it takes to make it happen.